Hello, Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to episode 310 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm Kevin Knight, joined by my co-host Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, welcome back. Tough weekend, tough game to watch. A lot of frustrations, understandably so. A lot to get to tonight because now we're at the point where a very familiar point in the season where the Falcons appear to have blown it. And we're talking about them having to save their season or right the ship at this point in the calendar. This is actually a very familiar feeling, which I'm sure all of you are also experiencing at this time of the year, where things are really starting to fall apart for Atlanta. And it's even more frustrating this time around, right? Given how well things seem to be going just 3 games ago, but things change quick in the NFL. Before we dive into it, Adnan, how you doing on this Wednesday evening?
In general, good with the Falcons, and not so good. Because yeah, like you said, it's like the movie Groundhog Day, right? It's can't help but feel like Bill Murray at this point of you just sort of wake up in December and the Falcons are either in the process of blowing it or they're at some 500 record crossroads where they lose the next game and then everything just goes to shit.
Yeah.
That's pretty much been the reality of this franchise every year for the past this is year 4 in a row now.
Yeah.
And then it's frustrating because like you said, this year was supposed to be different. This year, this year you invested in the quarterback position. You made the changes at coach on the coaching staff. You've invested in the team. The last 2 years ago, you can argue Capel that the roster wasn't talented enough 3 years ago as well. But these last 2 years have just been so frustrating because this team was supposed to move forward in that next phase of the rebuild. From rebuilding to now becoming a playoff team, and it just hasn't happened. The team still has this playoff drought, and man, now Tampa Bay has officially tied you in the division, which a few weeks ago felt unfeasible, and which I'm sure everyone agrees right now is completely unacceptable given where both of these teams were just a month ago.
Yeah, it's very disappointing to say the least, but also very familiar to watch this team sort of really peter out. And it just the whole thing feels very familiar. The difference is the investment in the quarterback position, which I don't think anyone is arguing that the Falcons didn't do enough to address the quarterback position. Really, I think you can go back to our thoughts right before the season where it looked like this team had made the necessary investments to get this roster in a spot where they could win 10, 11 games. I think we knew that the chances of them seriously contending were not realistic, but certainly the division seemed to be within reach and all of these things. Most of those investments have not worked. I think you could say the only one that's sort of between the Kirk Cousins signing, the Darnell Mooney signing, the Matt Judon trade, and the Justin Simmons trade, we're kind of batting about 500 there, right? With Darnell Mooney, big success. Justin Simmons has been, I think, worth the contract, but I think you were hoping for more, and I don't necessarily blame him entirely for that. I think there's some schematic issues that maybe are starting to be addressed. Obviously, Los Angeles game seemed to be a step in the right direction for the defense, but Matt Judon, catastrophic bust there, which maybe is the most impactful of all. And then Kirk Cousins, we're getting to a point where it's becoming very alarming with Kirk Cousins. But before here, let me get in our guest tonight. Got Eric Robinson here joining us. Oh, just a second, folks. All right. There he is. Eric, how we doing, my man?
Going on?
Not too much. You
Sorry
got here just in time for your intro. Yeah,
Oh,
perfect
man.
timing. So yeah. Welcome back, Eric Robinson, guys. He is at _Eric_Robinson on the Twitter. Currently at ESPN, the 4-letter network. Eric, welcome back. I thought we might be able to have you on after a triumph, based on when we, scheduled this. Everything seemed to be lining up. Oh, they're coming off a bye. They're going to have extra rest, all this stuff. Maybe we can get Eric back for another win. But unfortunately, here we are talking about this team having to right the ship at this time of the year. It feels very familiar. So
that seems so long ago.
Yeah,
my God,
6-3. Yep, so far away.
Here we are. Whatever stress that I have in life, a lot of it is generated from this team, from this organization. It's hard to watch this team play football. It really is. It's tough.
Yeah.
We have to do this.
Yeah, I mean, this week in particular, with just the performance of the defense, the bounce back, you could tell the team bought in during the bye. Everyone was bought in. We were seeing some good stuff, and then just to see the game just really thrown away by Kirk Cousins, the one guy you thought you could depend on to hold it together.
Right.
Frustrating, to say the least.
Can't have two things at once for some reason. I don't know why.
We just can't seem to get it together. Yeah, but we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to get Eric's take on stuff since we haven't had him on in a bit. Obviously, talk about, can this team right the ship? At this point, now down to 6-6. It's concerning. We got 5 games left. And the Falcons are still technically in first place thanks to their tiebreaker over Tampa Bay. But
this felt like that game. So, just looking forward a little bit, there's 3 games that you have to chalk up as wins. Otherwise, let's just talk about the draft right now. You have to beat the Giants, Vikings, and the Raiders.
Yep.
Not Vikings, excuse me. The Giants, Raiders, and the Panthers. Sorry.
Yep.
And then the other 2 are the Vikings and the Commanders.
Yep.
It felt like the Chargers were grouped in with that 50-50. This felt like the one you had the best chance of winning among those maybe get weeks. And you needed to win. You have to win at least one. Mm-hmm. So, you shot your shot, you missed, and now you have to beat either the Vikings, who are 10-2 in Minnesota, or the Commanders, who, Jaden Daniels, rookie of the year, possibly, perhaps.
Right.
But the Commanders
not great.
As well.
Yeah, not great. Well, let me real quick get to a word from our sponsor, BetOnline. Folks, BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to even now in-game live betting options, BetOnline provides you with all the action to bet on the games as they are happening, with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, college football, bowl seasons kicking off, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, boxing, MMA, all that stuff. They've got it. Go and check it out. Again, my recommendation will not be to bet on the Falcons, because it just always ends it's never been good for me. Prize picks, when I was doing the prize picks, I was hitting on that a couple times, but you got some wise words for this as well.
You know what? I'll be honest. I felt good by taking 80 plus for Ladd this past week, and lo and behold, he got that in a quarter and a half. So, betting against them is it's not that bad, honestly. You just have to kind of sort of pick and choose your spots. But I the last few weeks I've been betting against the Falcons. Let's be honest here.
Probably for the best. Probably for the best. But no matter who you want to bet on, folks, head to that website, betonline.ag today. And don't forget, when you sign up, to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, so here we are once again talking about this team falling apart getting into December. And, this I think is the most painful. Probably since 2015, right? 2015, though, that team did start 5-0, and obviously you expect to make the playoffs when you start 5-0, even if I think we all knew that start was pretty fraudulent. I mean, the way they were winning those games, the team didn't really look that great. They were just kind of winning, and it was like, oh, this is nice, but we all kind of know. Obviously, that team fell off a cliff. It finished 8-8, but this team felt like heading before they hit that second Saints game, that they were starting to kind of find themselves. They were coming off some more complete performances against weaker teams, yes, but they swept the Bucs and entrenched themselves ahead of Tampa Bay. They had put up a beating on the Panthers, and they should have beat the Cowboys by multiple scores. You know, Dallas ends up closing it with a late touchdown, but the Falcons were 100% in control of that game. So it felt like they were kind of getting it together. And then, Eric, we go on and lose to the Saints. Now, that one, Kirk didn't play a good game, but that was Younghoe Koo missing 3 kicks. I think we all know that wasn't necessarily Kirk's fault. But then we get to Denver, and the whole team breaks down, but Kirk is a pretty significant chunk of that. And then against the Chargers, the wheels just came off for Kirk Cousins, and he looked the worst he's looked all season. And very concerning stuff, particularly coming out of the bye, when you think this should be an opportunity to be the most healthy, the most prepared you've been since the start of the season, at least. So, I mean, how concerning was this for you, the timing of this performance?
You know, if we go back, I don't know if you guys at any point went back to the schedule prediction show that we did. We all kind of sort of circled this stretch as like, okay, it looks winnable, but if they just somehow find a way to lose these particular games here, that it would really put them in a very tough spot in the season, especially the Denver game. I remember we all felt like, okay, we should win it, but if they go on the road and lose in Denver, like it would really leave a bad taste in our mouth. And lo and behold, look at where we are. I will be honest with you. I don't have a ton of hope right now because those games that are outlined, the Raiders, the Panthers, those are not gimmies. They're not gimmies anymore because this team is just in such a mental funk right now. And all 3 of us know this franchise like the back of our hand. And we know when this organization gets into that midst of the season where nothing is going right, that the wheels will continuously fall off. And it's going to end in disaster somehow, some way. This is not the best time to be playing the Vikings right now. This is not a good matchup for Atlanta on both sides of the ball. I went over a few notes, and I'm sure you guys are going to dive into it as well, but just defensively alone, Vikings are 10th overall, 1st in rush defense, 3rd in yards per carry allowed, 5th in scoring defense. Now, they're 18th in red zone defense, but the only reason they're 18th is because opposing teams don't necessarily make a ton of trips to the red zone against the Vikings. That's the only reason why they're that low. And they're playing an offense right now that just I still think after 12 games they don't really have much of an identity as far as what their offense really is. And this is not, and you're going up against a defense, your quarterback is going up against a defense that he's practiced against for a while. They know him, he knows them. I really don't like the makeup of this game right now. This is terrible timing to go up against the Vikings in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup, even at the best of times. I mean, if the Falcons were riding a winning streak right now, I would still say I'm concerned about this game because the Vikings have such success rushing the passer. They've excelled at creating takeaways and pressuring quarterbacks into mistakes. And Kirk just doesn't handle the pressure well. So this type of defense, he's handled the blitz very poorly. It would make sense just from that angle alone, regardless of the context going into this week, that this would be a tough matchup. Unfortunately, they're in a spot now where this is like, you're almost in a must-win situation, given that you really can afford just one more loss all year. So you just really can't afford to lose anything, because you're gonna blow something later, you would imagine. So you need, if you want to have a realistic shot,
they're going to blitz him getting off the plane.
Yeah.
Okay. So he might as well. I'm sure he's ready for it. I'm sure he's anticipating it. But they're going to blitz him the moment he steps off the plane.
Yeah, it's like Kyle Van Noy's just like waiting, like when he gets off. Whoever
they're
it is.
Just waiting. Yeah.
He's just prepared. But yeah, Adnan, I mean, the vibes are bad regardless. But Eric's right. I mean, this is a terrible matchup on paper.
No, it's an awful matchup, and I mean, yeah, it is eerily similar to last season, right? You beat the Buccaneers last season to go 4-3, and you sort of take control of the division in that very sloppy game over in Tampa. And then you had that 3-game stretch against the Titans, Vikings, and Cardinals where you're like, okay, should probably be winning, 2 out of 3 minimum. Like, we have to be successful in this stretch. Will Levis in his first ever game. You faced Josh Dobbs, who had no practice that week, and then you had Kyler Murray in his game back from the ACL injury, and you lost all 3 of them.
Yep.
And then from there, just couldn't really recover. Almost did, but Younghoe Koo had his own missed kicks in that second Tampa matchups, and you end up losing that. You end up pissing away the division. But yeah, the Vikings, the way to really sort of get their defense a little bit is through the passing game, because like Eric referenced, they will shut down the run game, and the Falcons right now feel like a team that really sort of needs to rely on the run game a little bit behind Bijan Robinson, and we saw some of that in this past game. Robinson got a career high, I think 32 touches, a career high 26 carries. Like, even the coaching staff noticed some of these struggles, and I think they tried to compensate for it by really leaning on Bijan a little bit. Of course, none of that matters if your quarterback is playing that poorly, but yeah, if the Vikings shut down the run, which they've been doing all season long, then you're really, really reliant on Kirk Cousins having a very good game, obviously in a hostile environment, against a head coach that knows his tendencies very, very well. Cousins and O'Connell have worked together very closely for years. And yeah, right now Kirk Cousins is playing, some of the worst football, of the season and some of the worst football of his career. It's just a really, really bad mix against a Vikings team that they're 10-2 right now. The only reason why they're not a top 2 seed in the NFC is because the Lions happen to be in their division. And yeah, this is a very bad omen right now. Sure, it's a Kirk Cousins revenge game, but it's also a revenge game for the Vikings against Kirk Cousins. So I'm very sure that they're going to get up for that game just as much as anyone else. And yeah, this is where that loss to the Saints really hurts. This is where this loss to the Chargers really hurts, because in a vacuum, you lose to the 10-2 Vikings on the road. It's not the end of the world. But right now, this team has sort of used up its mulligans, and you lose this game against the Vikings. The Buccaneers, with their own victory, which hopefully they won't beat the Chargers this week, but a victory for them, that they'll go ahead of you in the division. And even if the Bucs don't win this week, I mean, they'll be favorites for the rest of the season, looking at the rest of their schedule. And yeah, right now the Falcons have really put themselves in a bit of a conundrum. And, you sort of need to win this game a little bit. If you don't win this one, then you really need to maybe even win out. And that's a very difficult scenario right now for this team.
Yeah. No, it's tough. Because like we talked about weeks ago, like the Bucs have an even softer finish. They do have to play the Chargers. And look, the other side of the coin obviously is that the Bucs can slip up too. Like the Bucs went to overtime with the Panthers. Like the Panthers had them on the ropes. The Panthers should have won that game. They missed so many opportunities to win that game. Yeah. So like, this Bucs team is not some juggernaut either, but they have an easier path, and they've managed to win the games that they should have lost, whereas the Falcons are losing the games they should have won. That's not going to help you either. So, the Bucs could easily slip up and lose 2 games, and then the Falcons just have to win the layups, and you're good to go. That obviously can happen regardless of anything else, but I think we should expect the Bucs to finish 4-1. Therefore, the Falcons also have to finish 4-1 if they want to win this division. And like you guys are saying, that means you have to beat one of the Vikings or the Commanders, and you can't blow a game, one of the easy games left on your schedule. So the margin for error is very thin, and it feels like the margin for error is 0 because they kind of have to be able to lose this Vikings game. I really don't see a path to them beating this Vikings team. The only, thing is that the Vikings just tend to play close games, and the Falcons have, outside of the last 3 weeks, been pretty good at winning those close games, but, it just doesn't feel hopeful, obviously, because, you're coming off, the week before the bye, the worst game of the season where the whole team basically collapses. And then you finally get a relatively good whole team performance in week 13, and the quarterback just throws the game away. And also looks borderline unplayable with the way he's just not making his full field reads, and he can't get the ball to the sideline without it fluttering. And coming off a bye, you would think this is the healthiest that he's looked since early in the season. He's had even more time to heal from this injury. It's just, it's all, the vibes are terrible. And I agree with Eric. Like, I just don't have a lot of hope here. Because it just feels like, this team offensively has hit a rut. They haven't really been able to get out of it. And now the quarterback is starting to cost you too. I think we all expected first year struggles from Zach Robinson and first year struggles from Jimmy Lake. Jimmy Lake's kind of been the bad guy for much of the season. It seems like he really put the work in over the bye to change some things, and I think that did help. The offense has kind of stagnated, and that's in addition to Kirk Cousins starting to flounder, which just makes the whole offense look terrible. So I'm not really sure where they go from here, but it's uncomfortable, even though it's very familiar.
I'll go back to earlier in the season as well. Those games against Pittsburgh and Kansas City, those were winnable games. They were struggles offensively, but they were fourth quarter, they were one-score games. So I kind of sort of go back to those games as well and say, man, really wish we could have picked up one of those two, if not both, to kind of sort of soften the cushion here a little bit. Also, keep in mind, this is a game they absolutely have to. This is a must-win, no doubt, because they have to travel to Vegas next week on Monday night, and then on a short week, you're back at home against the Giants. So just travel concerns alone, we know how it is when teams flying cross country and things of that nature. So games like this, it kind of sort of is amplified just a little bit more because of that particular factor there. Also, I feel like from the coaching standpoint, there's probably going to be a chip on the shoulder of Kevin O'Connell here, because he may want to prove that, hey, you know what? We let Kurt walk for a reason. Let me show you why. Let us show you why. And a lot of people were also wanting to know, could this be the week where, they make the transition to Michael Penix? Now, I'll be honest with you, because of the type of coach that Raheem Morris is and the closeness that he has to Kirk Cousins, to tell Kirk that he's being benched the week that he's going to play his former team, the team that let him walk, I can't see Raheem doing that. If this was the Raiders this week, maybe. But because it's the Vikings and there's some uniqueness to this game, I can't see Raheem, pulling the trigger and saying, yeah, we got to make the move now against Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't see him doing that to a guy that he really, feels, he really cares about Kirk a lot. So,
but the other side of that is, do you really want to throw Michael Penix to the Wolves in Minnesota now against that defense?
Fair enough. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was always a long shot to play Penix against the Vikings. I think no matter what, no matter the opponent, I was asked this on a Viking show. It's like, oh, if they weren't playing the Vikings, would Kirk have been benched? I was like, no. In fact, I think they'd probably prefer the Raiders game and the Vikings game to be switched, because I think they'd like to give Kirk an easy opponent to kind of right the ship against and boost his confidence, and then have to go on the road to Minnesota. The schedule works out very poorly for Kirk because, again, it throws him up against, the Broncos, bye, and then the Chargers, and then the Vikings. So we're talking three of the best defenses in the NFL. But part of the thing why I don't let Kirk off the hook necessarily is because the Chargers defense doesn't make him throw ducks. The Chargers defense isn't forcing him to make terrible reads and throw into triple coverage. He's just missing keys. He's just not doing the basic things he needs to do to not throw the ball to defenders,
right. He's missing the easy stuff that you don't expect a veteran of his stature to miss. There's a silver lining, which, a lot of people may know. I'm not really a fan of silver lining and all that type of stuff and moral victories, but they did lose back-to-back games against teams that look like they may be headed towards the playoffs right now. And losing to Denver was one, but immediately before that game was over, I looked at the Chargers and said, well, it's literally the same team for the most part when you think about it. Those two teams are pretty identical as far as what they want to do offensively and how they play defense as well. So it wasn't that great of a surprise that the offense showed some struggles against the Chargers, because again, like I said, I felt like there's some similarities between the Chargers and the Broncos, at least defensively. But it's tough because you still have an offense right now. Like this past, I think this was the second or third time this season that a guy like Kyle Pitts didn't have any catches, and he had 2 targets.
Yeah.
In games that you need, those type of guys should not have donuts on the stat sheet. Like, these are critical games that they need to win, and your more important players, guys like him, like Kyle Pitts, are not even getting looks, not even touching the football. And that's there's some kinks that still need to be worked out, obviously offensively, but is really, man, there's really nothing optimistic to really look at right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just from a micro sense regarding Kirk Cousins, I'm sort of having a hard time with some of the excuses just because you paid him so much money. Like, we were very, very critical of Desmond Ridder, obviously, for good reason, and for Marcus Mariota. And those guys were making a fraction of the guaranteed money that Cousins is making, the cap hit that you're going to have to eat with Kirk Cousins over the next couple of years. And just to be completely blunt, it's been unacceptable this year. Like, the 2 Tampa games have been, those were the high water marks of the season. Great job on those games. But in all other games, it's just felt, mediocre at best and just a catastrophe at worst. Kirk Cousins right now leads the NFL in interceptions with 13. And to top it off, he also leads the NFL in fumbles with 12. Like, he has put the ball in harm's way or outright turned it over 25 times, 12 games into the season. That's not just, he's not living up to the contract. That's been, a horrendous catastrophe up until this point. And it's been disappointing. And the Falcons they need Cousins to be better. Like, at the end of the day, we can say, it was this defense and, the team didn't show up against Denver. At the end of the day, your quarterback has to be accountable, and your highest paid player has to take the most accountability, because he's the guy we'll all be praising more than anyone. He's the guy we were praising more than anyone when the team was 6-3. I remember those Kirk Cousins MVP talks after that second Bucs win. And yeah, it's been just the fact that we're even mentioning Michael Penix's name at this point just tells you all you need to know about this season.
Yeah. It's rough. And yes, like I know, like, it's not just Kirk Cousins' fault. It's never just one thing. Like, it never is. I think it's obvious that this offense is kind of stagnated. They've struggled, I think, especially with the short game and, of course, the short yardage runs. They just have been very inconsistent there. And I think that Robinson just hasn't really found something that works. He wanted the screen game to be a big part of this offense, and you could tell early on they kept trying to lean on that. You wonder if, like, Rondale Moore was kind of the guy they hoped would be their, like, screen demon, and when he got hurt, they just didn't really have another guy that's been effective there. They haven't really executed, like, slants and stuff like that well. That there's not a lot of that in the game plan. Their short yardage go-to basically seems to, the short yardage plan just seems to be to basically dump it off to Bijan and have Bijan make magic happen. But teams are kind of wised up to that now. So the scheme isn't doing Kirk many favors right now, but I guess I don't know. Like, you watch the tape, you look, and guys are coming open. Like, there are typically players open, and Kirk just isn't getting through his reads. Like, he's just missing these guys, and he's locking on to his receivers, staring them down. I mean, Kirk's first read percentage is like second highest in the NFL, and that's, you brought in a quarterback like him to get past his first read, to get to that second, third read, and we've seen him do it at times this season. That's part of what's so frustrating. I mean, I think we all remember there was like a touchdown where he worked through the progressions, got back to Bijan, who was coming wide open, just hit him in stride, and he walked in untouched into the end zone. It's like, that's what we have come to expect from Cousins, and I don't think he's executing at a high level. And not only is he just not getting through his reads, he's also just making really bad decisions with the football, uncharacteristically bad. And that's killing him too.
That interception in the end zone, which he threw into triple coverage, he had Bijan wide open, and this isn't one of those, Bijan's in the corner over there, he's open, and you can see it on TV. Bijan was in his line of sight, and, instead of dumping it off to him over the middle, I think he had one player to beat, which, we've seen Bijan more often than not beat that one player when he does have a one-on-one. He throws it into triple coverage in what's just a completely inexplicable throw. Like, that's a throw where if a rookie quarterback makes it, you're throwing your hands up and saying, like, that's unacceptable, let alone, a veteran of his stature.
Yeah. And defenses are definitely starting to play or defend the play action better. They're starting to kind of sort of congest the middle of the field with the play action because they know that's the hot spot for Kirk. And it helps when you have to go up against receivers that don't, outside of Darnell Mooney, they don't create a ton of separation, if any. So it makes it a little bit easier to be able to take away the middle of the field and force Kirk into certain throws like that. This is not to mention, even with the run game, when you want to lean on a run game, defenses are knowing that you want to get to the edge. They know you want to get to the perimeter with this run game. So I've been looking for them to be a little more diverse in that aspect for a while, but we keep trying to force this wide zone, and defenses know that's what they're going to run. And I'm like, we can't. I do want to run the football, but I want to be a lot more versatile with running the football than what they're showing right now, because defenses are definitely starting to take away the edge. And you saw it a little bit against the Chargers. You definitely saw it plenty against the Broncos, and the run game, I'm almost certain, is not going to exist against Minnesota. So it's tough, man. It's really tough. And again, I hate to be a Debbie Downer. I hate to be the guy that's bringing negative energy or anything like that. But this might be the season right here. Honestly, they lose this game against Minnesota, I don't expect them to make the playoffs. I'll be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I'm certainly afraid of that. I think they're obviously on the negative downslope, where I wouldn't expect anyone to have, anyone to have a lot of faith in this team to right the ship. So the question is, like, will they? I think we don't know. I think most of us are skeptical. Could they? Yes, they have plenty of opportunity to do so, and I think it's going to require a whole team effort to get there, including the defense continuing to not revert back to what they were doing, to keep making positive changes. It's going to require the offense to diversify the run game. Like you said, they've been very successful running inside. I don't know what the aversion is to running inside. They've been doing a great job. Two of their best run blockers are inside. So it's like, I don't really get the aversion to it. They've dabbled in it, and I think they found success doing that. They've even found success doing some gap scheme stuff that you thought they would try to do more of that, given what the Rams were starting to do. They just have really stuck to this wide zone that the NFL has kind of figured it out. I mean, it was the du jour for all these years. Pretty much everyone was running wide zone. You're going to have to get off that and start to diversify your run game. Teams are just too familiar with defending it. And like also that the quarterback can't play like Kirk Cousins played last week. That I don't think anyone is disagreeing that, like, if Kirk looks like that again, he's not playable. That is, like, not starter quality NFL football. That's like benched rookie quality, like Bryce Young rookie season type football, where he can't even get the ball to the right spot. And when he does get the ball out there, he just throws it in a bad place. I don't know if he's pressing or panicking or whatever it is, but he can't look like that again, especially against the Vikings, because then the Falcons are forced into a situation where they have to decide whether he can operate the offense. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of gloss over the fact that the play calling may be limited because of Kirk. Like, not just Kirk is, like, the offense is limited, and it will be limited with any quarterback. I think they're intentionally limiting things because of Kirk. And, I don't think that's a recipe for success either. Right. I think they want to run more play action. I think they would like to move the pocket. I think they would like to have the quarterback be able to make more reads by escaping pressure or stepping up and things like that. And if Kirk can't have a clean pocket and set his feet, he just can't get the ball to where it's supposed to go. When he can get a clean pocket and set his feet, we've seen him deliver some good throws. It's not like he has no arm talent left, but if he's off platform at all, that ball just flutters on him, and it's the NFL. You're not going to be able to have a clean pocket all the time. Yeah.
And I'm not saying he should. I don't want him to run more, because that's not his thing. But if you notice, defenses are like there's run lanes everywhere, and defenses are giving it to him because they know he's not going to run. And again, I'm not saying I need him to tuck it and take off and pick up some first downs with his legs. It's just defenses is going back to the point you made, Kevin. Defenses have truly figured out this offense. They're going to take away the perimeter in the run game. They're going to flood the middle of the field with play action. And Kirk is going to have to make decisions on the fly. And everyone knows Kirk's mental clock right now, because he's a sitting duck in the pocket. It's probably 3 seconds, and if it's longer than that, oh boy!
And if he gets hit, he's going to drop the ball, more or less. And that's even if you don't lose those fumbles, you're losing field positioning on those fumbles. Like he's only lost 2 of the fumbles. That's fine, but you're losing an extra 5 to 10 yards every time he fumbles the ball. It was catastrophic for you in that Saints game. It absolutely destroyed your last drive in that game. Having a quarterback with no mobility at all, and with such a poor arm as Kirk is exhibiting right now, is a really, really bad combination. But when you combine that with him dropping the ball on those hits, and with him making poor decisions, it's just it just can't be any worse at that point. And I feel like we've hit rock bottom, and that's it's an issue, because I think I've said that about 3 or 4 different times this season, that we've sort of hit rock bottom with Cousins' performance. The Pittsburgh game, the Seattle game, the Denver game, and now this game. Like, we can't have this many catastrophes.
Yeah, just can't have that. You can't have it. And, especially when the margins are this thin, you really can't have it. And it's unfortunate for Kirk, but the timeline is short for him, and the team is kind of backed into a corner about what they're going to do going forward if he can't right the ship immediately. Because if he looks like he looked against Los Angeles again, I think there has to be serious conversations about, can he operate this offense, because are they going to be able to make the drastic schematic changes they need to accommodate how limited he is, or would it be more beneficial if it doesn't seem like they're really able to make a lot of changes offensively? Zach is a newer offensive coordinator. How drastically are we really going to change this thing in the first year? Or you can just insert Penix, who looks like he's tailor-made to run what they're trying to run with all these deeper routes. Like,
And we're not necessarily dumping on Kirk and putting all the blame on him. Zach Robinson has his issues as well. I really do have a problem with running end rounds with Drake London, which is something we've never done in the 3 or 4 years that he's like, that's not Drake's game. and you want to do it with an athletic defense like the Chargers, with a guy like Derwin James. You expect Ray McLeod to really block Derwin James and give him space on an end around on 3rd and short. Like, that's not like those type of play calls. I scratch my head a little bit on also. So there's plenty at fault here. I mean, red zone offense is dreadful.
Two of them. You had two 3rd and 1 end around.
Yeah.
As if one wasn't bad enough.
Right. Yeah. You went back to the well as if it was, things were going to change. The red zone offense has been putrid as well. When the field is condensed, they just don't know how to get the ball into the end zone. Doesn't help that Youngway is, I don't want to say he's a liability, but he's
been one lately.
It's questionable.
He's getting there. If he's not a liability yet, he's on his way. I'll put it to you that.
It was funny because after the miss, they ended up getting the turnover and then scoring a touchdown off of it. So it was actually probably in some ways like better because they got great field position off that turnover because he missed. So that was, a lot of people were like, oh, Koo cost him this game. I was like, actually, the Koo miss led to them getting a touchdown a little bit later, kind of indirectly. So I'm not too upset about that. New Orleans, absolutely.
New Orleans is on Koo. That's squarely on him. They were supposed to win that. I feel like that game would have been won if he were to be his normal self in that aspect. Because yes, they did have some turnovers late, but I never, honestly, in that particular game, I never felt as if the Saints defense was really going to stop them, especially when the run game started to hit in the second half. Bijan had that big run for a touchdown. I felt like the run game was rolling. They didn't want to tackle, and I felt confident, honestly, in the second half of the Saints game. But this is a team right now. You're kind of sort of looking at the leaders, and I'm not saying not just Kirk, but you're looking at guys like Jesse, you're looking at guys like Justin, you're even looking at Raheem as well. Like, mentally, we see what's happening on the field, but I don't think a lot of people are taking into account mentally what this team is struggling with right now and how they need to get out of this somehow, some way. The only aspect with this particular game on Sunday against Minnesota, I will give them a fighting chance if defensively they're able to create extra possessions for the offense. If you turn Sam Darnold into New York Jets Sam Darnold, there may be a fighting chance. Maybe.
Man, all I know is I've talked a lot of shit about the Vikings this season. And I've talked a lot of shit about the Vikings, saying that they're frauds, saying that they're going to come back to earth,
They're looking like geniuses.
Expecting the Falcons to sort of back me up, but I feel like the chickens are going to come home to roost this Sunday.
They're looking like geniuses. They let Kurt walk. They brought in Sam Darnold, who, we didn't even know what to make of him coming from San Francisco. They drafted J.J. McCarthy. McCarthy gets hurt in the preseason, so they have to start Sam Darnold. And now they're looking like geniuses. It's funny how football plays itself out sometimes, man.
Yeah. It's it's challenging. There are a number of issues, and you're right about that. Where it's not entirely Kirk. Robinson has needed to adjust this scheme for weeks, and the offense is stagnated. Like it's kind of stuck. I do think a lot of it has to do with the team feeling limited by what they can ask Kirk Cousins to do. That's hard to operationalize. I get. I feel like they're very limited by that. I also think they're, it's maybe looking like it was a mistake to bring back Dwayne Ledford because he's just refusing, I think, to call a diverse run game. He wants to run outside zone. He's the run game coordinator. He's not really. They just refuse to change the run game, and the run game looks exactly like it did under Arthur Smith. So is that really a Zach Robinson issue, or is it like, I hired this guy to call my run game, and now
what's frustrating about what you said, Kevin, that the offense is kind of sort of limited because what Kirk can do. We've already went through 3 consecutive years of that, where we've had a quarterback on the field that we can only do but so much because of what we have under center. You had an aging Matt Ryan, you had Marcus Mariota, and you had Ritter. So we already went through 3 seasons where it's like, man, there's only so much we can do offensively because this guy is limited. And then you pay $100 million for another quarterback to bring him in, and it's still kind of sort of the same issue. There's only so much we can do because of the guy that we have under center.
I was going to say it's even worse now because of all the money you've committed to Kirk.
Yeah.
Like, at least the silver lining with Desmond Ridder is he was making $600,000 in cap hit.
Yeah.
You could build the team around him, and that's how you got Jesse Bates, and that's how you built that defense up. And now Kirk Cousins, there was an opportunity cost in bringing in Kirk Cousins, and it's a problem when you've had to pay the piper and when you're not getting what you're supposed to in return for that transaction.
Yeah, it's difficult. We'll continue on this topic. I wanted to get to a couple questions. I know we had some come in from Furball with the $2. Thank you. So what do we do from here? Do we have to win out? They don't have to win out. If they were to win out, they would be fine, right? They would absolutely win the playoffs without question. So if they win out, they're good to go. I think we all don't think that's realistic in the slightest, so we're probably not going to entertain that. But if they were to just lose one more game, I think their chances of making the playoffs are probably in the 90% range or better. So, that's probably what they need to do is win 4 games.
This is not the game to lose. Unfortunately, this is probably the game that they will lose.
This is the one they probably have to. Yeah, this is the one you have to be able to lose.
This is a
unfortunately, you're going to lose. You can go 4-1, but you're going to lose the one this week. Yeah. So then you have to go 4-0. Then you will have to win out. So
I'm of that mindset that if you lose this week, you'll probably have to win out, and that's I think 10 wins can even get you a wild card spot. 9 wins. Probably not, given how tough the NFC is. I mean, who knows? But you also have to hope that the Bucs lose to the Chargers. It's like playing a game of chess, right? You can't just expect your opponent to make a mistake. And right now, the Falcons are in a chess match against the Bucs. The Bucs almost blinked against the Panthers. They almost made that mistake, but they didn't. Thanks, Carolina, for nothing. But yeah, you have to sort of have the expectation that the Bucs, after this week, will probably win out. I mean, you never know, but most likely, given their schedule, they will be favorites in those games. You have to win 4 games.
Yeah.
You have to go into this with the mentality that you have to win at least 4 games.
Yeah. It sort of feels like another chapter of how can the Falcons find a way to ruin the season.
Man, they've written a whole,
a whole book. Yeah.
Unroll the scroll,
Absolutely.
They've written 8 different volumes of that story.
Absolutely. Every season has been different. It's felt different to an extent, but this is one where it's like, man, this year, let's go 4-1 in the division by the middle of October and then blow it. Let's do that. Like
that seems to be the strategy this year. So it's disappointing for sure. That 4-1 is what they have to do more than likely. They might be able to get there with 3-2 if the Bucs lose 2, but otherwise they got to go 4-1. So realistically, 4-1 is what they need to do. Is it realistic to expect that? Probably not. They're probably going to win 3 games would be my guess. So we'll see. Although that would mean they don't go 7-10 again, so at least we would have that. But they're not out of danger of that yet either.
I'll say this: the league is definitely anticipating this division race to come down to the last week because the season finale for the Bucs is a flex game at this point. It hasn't been determined where it's going to get flexed to, but it's already been given the tag as a flex game because that could be the Bucs winning it and winning the division in that season finale. So they're already anticipating like, oh yeah, the Falcons are probably going to trip up at some point and give the Bucs a fighting chance.
Yeah. We'll see.
It would be such a Falcons thing if the Bucs did mess up, and then you just lose to the Panthers.
And then you lose to the Panthers last week. That would actually be pretty perfect. So by perfect I mean terrible.
Knowing that if you win, you're in. No matter what. I think you're tied with the Bucs, and then you just lose to the Panthers and they beat the Saints, and
Wouldn't it be a Panthers thing as well to come out and for them to look like the best team in the league that week?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
hey, Bryce Young has looked pretty good since being inserted into the
Yes.
lineup again.
Wouldn't
Adam
be
Thielen's
surprised.
looking rejuvenated right now. You know, it's
Right. There's smiles on the faces of players on the sideline now. Like it's just, it wouldn't surprise me if week 18 it's like, my God, this is a fist fight against Carolina.
yeah, shit. I haven't seen any smile on the faces of the Falcons in like 3 weeks at this point.
Jeez.
Oh, man. It's pretty rough. All right. We got Keith Simmons with the $5. Thank you for the donation, man. He says, my dudes, it's reality setting in for the fandom now that we're 6-6. Think that the league now has the tape on this Falcons offense. Yeah, that is part of the problem. The offense is clearly kind of stagnated scheme-wise. They definitely have started to defend the deeper part of the field, and that's taken away, some of the easy completions they were getting early. They're just not respecting the run game as much anymore. The inconsistency that the Falcons have up front. So that absolutely is the case, and they're going to have to make some adjustments if they want to take advantage.
Reality set in against Denver.
That was a wake-up call. Yeah, it's like, oh, this team can be really bad. Okay.
Not only did we lose, we got punched in the face and lost by 30.
That was pretty rough, to say the least. I would agree with that statement. We got Ryan H. with the $5 saying, I think there would be about 17% less doom and gloom if Chuba Hubbard didn't fumble our division lead away. I hope he takes a poop with his pants on. Yeah, thanks, Chuba. You really hosed us there, bud. So
two hands on the ball. Like I feel like you're taught that in Pop Warner. You're in field goal range already. Just put two hands over it. Not only
that, but you let Baker come back in the game late. You have him wrapped up for a sack that could probably win the game. He has a bruised knee. He's not as mobile as he was, and you let him escape and pick up a third down with his legs to put the team in field goal position and tie it and send it in overtime. Like those little things as well. But again, like I said, watch. Week 18, Chuba's going to go for 150 and 2 touchdowns. The defense is going to get 6 sacks, and they're going to look amazing. And it's like, of course, because
I will say this about that Panthers game, and I feel like this conversation that we're having needed to happen. And if the Panthers win that game, and if this past game ended up being inconsequential, I'm scared that we would have done that thing, not us here, but us as a fan base, where we would have just sort of glossed over it and just sort of ignored it and been like, oh, yeah, this happened, but the division lead is still intact. I feel like this franchise has been doing that for a while, where this division is the worst division in football, and they've just sort of, put lipstick on a pig, so to speak, and just glossed over some really big issues because you've been able to beat up on the Sisters of the Poor in the NFC South. 4 of your 6 wins have been against the NFC South. You have 1 victory over a team that's currently above 500, and even that victory came by way of a blatant, Saquon drop. So it's, maybe it's a good thing. Like maybe it's a good thing that this team has wound up in this position, because now some of these more difficult conversations can finally be had without that. Yeah, but like those are the kind of things that really set a franchise back in the long run.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
Agreed.
Absolutely. Agree.
Completely agree.
Mm-hmm. All right. We got Corey Carter with the $2 saying, anyone remember the Matt Ryan Arizona game? Yes. The difference was Matt Ryan won that game. It's Matt Ryan's a Hall of Famer, I still don't know how they won that. That was some crazy shit.
Yeah.
But
they won because they were facing Ryan Lindley, I think.
That does help. That does help.
On the other side. I do remember that's the game that did kill Matt Ryan's MVP hopes, because Matt Ryan was, he had an outside chance at MVP. Then after that game, that word was not mentioned until 2016 for Matt Ryan again.
Yeah. Yep. Luckily, he did get it there, but
he is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
absolutely,
he is. Shout out to the GOAT. We got Corey Carter once again with the $2. He asks, "Does anyone know if the Vikings happen to have any creamsicle uniforms?" I don't think so. Maybe we can have some shipped in. Maybe that'll help.
Maybe we can hypnotize Kirk. Like hire one of those hypnotists. Be like, these are the Buccaneers.
It's
you're
the Buccaneers.
in Tampa right
Can't
now.
you see the creamsicle? Yeah. and he just
Ignore
sees
the
creamsicle.
cold.
Yeah.
We're down
It's indoors. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
We're
Put the
down
sun
really
directly on
bad
him or
right
something.
We're down bad.
We're down the worst right
We're
now.
down bad.
We're doing
Yeah.
bad, guys.
Yeah.
We're leading the division, and we're talking about hypnotizing our quarterback so he can visualize another opposing defense. This is not good. This is not good at all. I mean, it may be premature to have this conversation right now, but as far as like peeling back the layers and looking at 2025 and Kirk Cousins in this situation, as far as even if it's a situation where they do make the playoffs, you know, how much are we really entertaining running this back again in 2025 with him under center?
Right. I mean, I think unless Kirk was really like playing at a high level, like if he had after that second Bucks game continued playing like well, and like he could if he keeps playing, it's not I mean, he could finish relatively strong given that they're going to play after the Vikings. I mean, 4 defenses that are all bottom 25, right?
Right.
Commanders defense is the toughest defense they're going to face, and even the Commanders defense isn't that great. So, you know, it's very possible if Kirk doesn't get benched, he could finish strong, but you know, and we'll see what the team wants to do with that. But I think at this point, you can just the physical decline that we're seeing, irrespective of the schematic issues and what, you know, the struggles that are going on there. The physical decline for him is not going to stop. So you do wonder, like 1 year later, I guess the hope, I guess like that's one argument that I've heard that could make some sense is like our only chance, like we know that this probably isn't going to be something we want to run back next year. But if we can play him against this soft finish and he can put some good games on tape, maybe we could rehab his trade value and someone would give us something. They're not expecting a day 2 pick or anything maybe, but someone would give us like a 3rd or a 4th rounder for Kirk just to get him off our hands. And then we can go with Penix. But like, I mean, I don't know, man. There's like, never forget how many dumb teams are out there, Eric. Okay, there's a lot of dumb teams. The Falcons right now look like one of them. But like, you know, there are a lot of teams desperate for quarterbacks that could be willing to do some craziness. If he finishes strong, someone could easily talk themselves into Kirk Cousins. So
there are some coaches whose jobs are going to be on the line. You know, maybe you call Brian Double up in New York.
Oh no.
I don't think they're going to do that. But somebody could. I actually think Brian Dable is actually relatively smart. I would probably say like Vikings. Hey guys.
Back? No. Like with Dable, if it's already, you know, they pretty much assured that he's going to be back next year. If I'm Brian Dable, I'm not looking at anybody, any other quarterback, but in the draft. Like I've been here for X amount of years and I haven't even gotten my guy yet. So it's a tricky situation. I mean, it's something, like I said, even if they do, you know, get this thing back on course, make the playoffs, maybe win a game in the playoffs, I do think it's a reasonable question to ask. Like, do we really want to run this back in 2025, given the price tag?
No, we shouldn't want to run this back in 2025 because the price tag is going to go from a $25 million cap hit to a $40 million cap hit. So you're automatically paying a more expensive premium. Mm-hmm. What I'm scared that's going to happen, because this, you know, happens a lot with this franchise in general, is that, you know, maybe Kirk Cousins does take advantage of that light stretch to end the season. Maybe the Falcons, let's say they do make the playoffs, maybe even, you know, win a playoff game against whoever they face. I feel like at that point with this franchise, it feels like this franchise always sort of sticks with someone too long. And I think at that point, they may convince themselves that, hey, you know what? Kirk is the guy for next year, instead of doing what, you know, some of the more successful franchises have done, which is, you know, move him on and take advantage of those dumb franchises and get someone to take him off your hands. Because this $40 million next year, that's a lot of money. And if you can get anything for him, you know, for someone to, you know, just take a good chunk of that money, because it's not just that. His 2026 roster bonus of $10 million is fully guaranteed on the 5th day of the league year this year. So you're not only committing the $40 million in cap hit next year, you're automatically guaranteed to give him another $10 million in 2026. And, the only way to sort of lower that cap hit this next year is to restructure him, which will guarantee that he's going to be there even longer, which is, I think, the last thing they want to do. So, yeah, to answer your question, no, I have no interest in running this back. You spent the top 10 pick on Michael Penix. Let's roll. Let's roll with the rookie or with the second-year man next year.
It's funny you mentioned that, Adnan, because this organization does have a history of kind of sort of convincing themselves like, hey, maybe everything is okay. And they kind of sort of did it this year at the trade deadline because, yeah, I know that they were interested in guys at the edge, but the fact that the game before the deadline, they went out against Dallas, got 3 sacks. I thought within myself, I'm like, that's the worst game to have right now because they probably told themselves, see, we can turn it around. So maybe we shouldn't have to press the envelope at trade deadline to try to get somebody in. We got the right guys here in the building. They've done that so many times before. So
yeah.
No,
I mean, it could be the case. And the thing with like, people are like, oh, just cut Kirk. You're gonna have to cut Kirk. There's literally no point to cutting Kirk. If you can't trade him, you might as well just carry him because there's no benefit. So I think unless Kirk played at a level where you're like excited about him being your starter, there was always going to be a competition next training camp. And like, I think Kirk would have had a good chance to win if he was playing well too. Like, but as it stands now, they're probably going to have they'll probably have a competition, but my guess is they'll be telling Kirk, because he does have a no trade clause. People were correct by bringing that up. They will probably be telling Kirk, like, we can either trade you now before your bonus guarantees, or you can potentially ride the bench all year. And that's up to you. But like, if you want a chance to start again, because that's his opportunity. Like, you're probably not going to have much choice of where you go. But like, look, a lot of people are like, oh, well, Kirk is too expensive. No team would trade for him. He's only 27.5 to the team trading for him, right? He's 40 million to the Falcons, but he's 27.5 to the team trading for him. So, the Falcons don't exactly save much by trading him. They save 2.5 million, but they do save, I mean, ultimately they save a little bit, right? And they are able to potentially get something for him. 27.5 is like, that's not an overly expensive veteran quarterback at that point. That's like a mid-range veteran starter. So
they secretly hope that he wakes up one morning and says, you know what? I want to call it a career.
Well, yes, that would be the best case.
Quietly
he
in the
just
building.
wants to retire.
The odds of that happening.
That's not
much money. Too much money on the line for that. I'm not walking away from all that cash.
Right. Because I know off the subject, but I know the Browns are hoping that with Deshaun, but Deshaun would be an idiot to walk away from 180 million guaranteed over the next 3 years.
Yeah, he won't.
I mean, hey, at least we're not the Browns. So
at least we're not. They wanted to be desperatly. They really wanted to do that too. Never forget.
Yeah, we were almost the Browns. Yeah. We were almost.
Never forget. Yeah. So Nico, like, he has a no trade clause, but if he wants to start, he'll waive the clause. If he just wants to ride the bench, which he doesn't want to do, I guarantee you the money's not, like, I know Kirk is known as this guy that just cares about the money. He also cares about starting, right? Like, that's important to him. And if it's that important to him, he'll waive the clause to get traded. If, like, I don't really think that'll be that big of an issue if he's not going to be the starter. I don't think they're going to be able to trade him to like a dumpster team to be somebody's backup, but nobody's trading for Kirk Cousins to be their backup. They're trading hoping that they can. You
also have to keep in mind he's been wanting to go to a place where he can actually retire, where he feels good about like, hey, this is where my career is going to come to an end. Because he mentioned that upon signing with Atlanta, like this, he felt like this could be a place he can come and be productive and call it a career at the end of the day. So he's not going to want to go to a dumpster fire and have disasters of a season and say, okay, you know what, that's it. It's real quick. It's frustrating because you look at a team like Denver, right? Denver did absolutely. They pretty much did nothing outside of drafting Bo Nix this past draft cycle. They did nothing. They didn't give out $100 million. They didn't trade for an edge rusher. They didn't trade for. They got rid of Justin Simmons, and yet they're 8-5, and on the verge of making the playoffs. And here are the Falcons giving out $100 million, taking a quarterback in the top 10, trading for Judon before the season, trading for bringing in Justin Simmons in free agency. And they hit a wall and they're struggling. And the postseason looks bleak. It's circumstances like that is what makes football just so difficult to watch. Like you try to fix your team and it doesn't go the right way. And you're another team that's like, yo, we don't have the money to fix our team. Let's just see what the hell can happen. Oh, wait, we're 8-5 and we're squarely in the wild card picture right now. We're looking good. We look like we might end up still in the spot. Sometimes you just I say to myself, I hate football. Like that's football.
It happens.
That's
part of why it's so compelling too. Like you don't really know what's going to happen, and and that's part of. I think there's a lot of revisionist history. Like a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, Fontenot's so stupid for trading for Matt Judon." Yeah. Let's go look at your timeline when they traded for Judon. I guarantee you were celebrating. I don't remember one person saying a bad thing about the Judon trade. They were so dumb to trade for Judon. I never would have done that.
Just for a third, we all were. Not only that, but he gets in and he says, you know what? We don't have to do a contract extension right now. Oh my God. This is.
Team probably saw him in practice and they were like,
oh yeah, they were like, hell no.
don't even ask for it.
Yeah, and he knew too, clearly. That he was.
We were like, wow, this is working. And then, a week later, Justin Simmons is signed. We're like, oh, things are looking up, guys.
Oh, we were talking about the NFC Championship game.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wasn't saying the defense was fixed, but I was saying, low teens maybe. That's enough.
That could be something. That could be really something.
We would have been fine with a 15th ranked defense.
Oh yeah, I'd be celebrating.
I'd be fine with a 19th ranked defense. Just don't be in the bottom 10. Judon bamboozled us. Like he bamboozled, finessed this team. Whatever adjective you want to use. But yeah, it's bad. Yeah, he's been a disaster. Can you imagine if they gave him 18 mil a year in a contract extension as well?
That would have gotten Fontenot fired.
The Patriots got their lick back for the Sanu trade.
Yeah, they did. They got us back. No, I mean, I think this was just super shrewd by Judon, and he was refusing to practice, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's because he wants out of New England." I wonder if it's because he didn't want anyone to know,
that he felt like he was washed.
Yeah. Which is it's really odd how quickly it came on because it was an upper body injury, not a lower body one. So you wouldn't think that it would have affected him that bad.
Was it a bicep injury?
I think it was a bicep. Yeah. And it's that's not an easy injury to rehab, but it doesn't really affect your conditioning or athleticism.
Mm-mm.
So it's odd how quickly he fell off. I think it probably, and that again, I think everyone was kind of surprised by that. I'm not even sure the Patriots knew he was washed because he barely practiced for them. So, but yeah, it seems like the Falcons figured it out pretty quick. And they were like, well, shit, but that we're not giving you an extension. So, go out there and earn your money. And they were right to do so. But
how soon should we start the draft talk?
We'll see how this game goes. Yeah.
2 more losses.
Maybe next week. Yeah.
2 more losses. Yeah, if they lose Minnesota, you still have to be fair that, hey, they can still technically win out.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I just want to let you guys know I've definitely been hitting up the mock draft simulators.
A little bit, but
I've already started.
Yep,
I'm just waiting for you guys to get ready. So,
yep,
yeah,
just doing some preliminary scouting. That's all.
However, I will say if somehow the Bucs start losing as well, then those 2 losses could increase. So if Tampa Bay loses their next 2 or 3 weeks, then team is still first in the division. As long as the team's first in the division,
we can hold it off.
Yeah, we can hold it off. Yeah, it's keeping it at bay. But yeah, pretty soon, right? It'll be senior bowl season.
It's gonna be sooner than you think, guys. We're already
sooner than you think.
Dusting off the mock drafts already, man.
Yep. It's almost Senior Bowl fundraising season. Almost
at least
everything.
It's the latest in the season that it's been.
Yeah.
In quite some time. Like normally we start the draft talk around what, October?
I mean, you started it in September that one year.
You're like, oh yeah, nope, we're done. Yeah.
You were just started. It was like, oh, it's okay.
It's
Team was like,
no.
0-2, 0-3. I think it was after that Cowboys onside kick game.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
That
I mean, I think everyone was ready to jump off.
I got a mock draft. It's in the drafts. It's in the drafts. It's ready to be.
It's ready.
Edited.
That's where you sim till the end of the season.
Yeah, yep, that's it. We're good. Yep, we're good.
Oh, here's some scouting reports already. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. I'm ready. We're ready to go.
Hello,
yeah.
Thanks for coming. Goodbye.
Just walk in, walk out. Yeah, but yep, exactly. All right, we got 2 more questions here. We got Corey Carter with the $2. Says this could be a lot worse. The only thing that saved us is the fact that Cleveland's got, he says Cleveland's got better parlors than Atlanta, assuming he's referring to Deshaun Watson's litany of, I don't even know if I should say alleged. I mean, it's pretty much like proven sexual assault at this point that he's just avoided by paying everyone off. So I don't know. I think it was mostly the guaranteed money, Corey, that he was interested in, knowing full well that he was likely to get a huge suspension, which he did. Right. And the fact that, he was also washed and just was like, if I get a fully guaranteed contract, I don't really have to do anything.
Look at how much money they've had to pay Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston the last 2 seasons and how better both have been compared to Deshaun.
Yeah.
Even pick sixes aside, Jameis is the reason why they're even in some of these games. Honestly, let's just be real. Like,
hey, I would take Jameis right now in Atlanta.
Well, the Jameis giveth and the Jameis taketh away, as we saw.
If you're comparing money, like, why couldn't the Falcons sign one of these, like, very cheap quarterbacks that just turn into something? We see it with Darnold, see it with Jameis. We saw it with Baker Mayfield in this division.
Like Russ?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about
we
Russ.
Were all against it. I know I was.
Yeah.
I was for signing Russ for $1 million. I was like, what, $1 million? Like, bring him to me.
No. I whiffed on that one. I said no to Russ. I did not expect to see this type of Russ, let alone see this type of Russell Wilson with Arthur Smith.
He just needs to be an offensive coordinator. He's just one of those guys,
Apparently he's a dark horse for the Jets job next year. So,
some guys are just coordinators, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, yeah, you're this number 2 position on your team and you're like the best at it. It's like, but for some reason, like, guys are just like, nope, I have to be the number 1 guy, and not everyone can be the number 1 guy.
I don't get it.
The Jets, that's another franchise where at least we're not them.
Like Arthur Smith was the guy, the head coach, the play caller. He put all the ingredients together for 3 years. He goes to Pittsburgh. He gets an aging quarterback, and his offenses look better in Pittsburgh than it's ever looked in Atlanta with younger players, more talent. I don't get it. Like, why is football this difficult to understand? I don't understand.
I think when he got fired, it actually made him, think critically about what he was doing a bit more, and that happens to some guys. They actually do go back and think about what changes they could make. Yeah.
In fairness, Russ as a quarterback much better than what Atlanta's had the last couple of years, and that Pittsburgh team, that offense has had some short fields because of how good that defense has been as well.
That helps. It definitely helps.
It does. It does.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Keith Simmons says with the $5, thanks, Keith. He says, wonder if we could do like a pick swap, maybe a second for a third or something, in addition to eating some of Cousins' contract to facilitate that trade. I mean, maybe.
Who?
I mean, I have no idea, but
whoever's desperate enough.
I mean, I would probably say like you would take like a 4th for him, to some team that like Basically, like some team that is knowing they won't be in range to draft a quarterback, or they don't like this rookie class. It's not a great rookie class. It's just not.
I mean,
for quarterbacks.
It's top heavy is good at the top, but if you look at like the top 12 teams, there's like over half don't necessarily need a quarterback. Like that's the thing. So I mean, and a number of teams in the latter half of the first already have their younger option in place that they want to develop and lean and build with. So it's like, man, even trying to find a trade partner for Kirk is like, yo, it may just be one or two teams, if that.
Imagine stepping back in time, back to August, and telling yourself, hey, 12 weeks into the season, we're going to be talking about who can we trade Kirk Cousins to? Who's going to
After week one, I was worried, yeah. But then they quieted that down for a while. Unfortunately, we're back. We've come full circle.
What a Falcons scenario to happen.
Yeah,
you know,
but
imagine being told this back in June or back in March.
Or imagine if they're at this place right now and they didn't take Penix.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at next year's class and you're like, oh my God, are we even going to be in a position to get a guy?
They'd be too good. They would have played themselves out of position, you know?
Right. You'll be in the late teens.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like...
Now, Penix still has to work out, but
has to work out. Yeah. But it's relief. You're relieved that you have him in the building. Like, we're going to hang our hat on him. And if it works, it works.
At the same time, you made the investment. You have him as the insurance, option. You got to call into that insurance policy, after this train wreck. And, you got to make the call at some point. And this offseason seems like that ideal time, unless we, see something that completely shifts the vibe over the next few weeks.
Yeah, no, I think it's like, yes, it would look foolish to bench Kirk Cousins after giving him $100 million. The only thing that would look more foolish is keeping him in and losing games. If you had, what'll make you look not foolish? If you put Penix in and Penix takes you to the playoffs,
balls.
What do you think fans are going to be thinking? Oh, I'm so pissed that Kirk Cousins isn't playing. We paid him all this money. Or like, oh, I'm so excited about Michael Penix leading us to the playoffs.
No, they're going to be calling Raheem a genius. Like, man, he wasn't.
And it's like, that doesn't erase the bad decision, but like it does. Like, if you're winning, people don't care. People will overlook a lot of mistakes.
But think of how bad the vibes will be if you put in Penix. He looks like a disaster. And now, it's just...
Well, then we know we need to clean house, right? So,
so
we learned something. We learned something either way.
Burn it all down at that point.
Then we're having some conversations, in the offseason.
Yeah. No, I mean, we'll have to see how Kirk fares this week. And it seems improbable, but if they do have a good game, then there won't be really any conversation to think about benching him at that point. Like if they do manage to pull out this dub, obviously that'll quiet down a lot of this, but it seems unlikely to say the least. This is a bad matchup. But again, like if he has a good game and they don't win, it's the same thing. Like they don't necessarily have to win to keep him from being benched. If he looks like he did last week again, I think it's like, this is not functional. Like we can't run an offense with a quarterback like this. So, as long as it's not that bad, his job is probably safe. But if it is that bad or close to it, then that's when the conversation begins. The conversation's begun. That's when the conversation should end. And you're like, sorry, Kirk, we can't wait around and hope that this gets better with you. Like we need a spark. And it's a bold move. And it's one of those things where sometimes you have to make bold moves to try to save your season. And there's obviously upside to putting Penix on the field too, right? Like he gets these valuable reps that are really valuable against real NFL defenses. And this is a great spot to insert him too, because you get Vegas, you get New York, you get Washington, and you get the Panthers. 4 easy defenses for him to sort of get used to. And the Giants, their best player, Dexter Lawrence, is on IR. So he's not even going to play. So, I mean, you couldn't think, it's harder to come up with a softer start for him. And you give him an opportunity to prove himself, like, hey, go out there, show us what you can do. you're giving him a terrific opportunity to basically like cement his early legacy by leading this team to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't make it, it's like, well, he's a rookie that you tried to put in to get a spark. If he doesn't make it, like, are we really going to be that upset with him? Like, I mean, it's like, well, maybe he can go 4-0. And if he doesn't go 4-0, if he goes 2-2, are we really going to be like, oh, well, he's a bust? It's like, no, it's like, this is a good opportunity to get him reps. And we need to know, like, is he someone we can start next year or not? You know,
I watched this fan base convince themselves that Desmond Ridder was the savior for going 2-2 2 years ago. Like, you know, the bar is not going to be very high for him to have to clear.
Yeah. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, this game's going to be a big difference maker in terms of the future of this team, the future of this season. And we'll see how it goes. But, you know, ultimately, I'm not really hopeful for this weekend, but this team has the ability to beat the Vikings. The Vikings play a lot of close games, and the Falcons on the whole have won more close games than they've lost. So they do have the opportunity to do that again. We'll see if they can get it done. But Eric, it was wonderful to have you back on, folks. He is Eric Robinson at _Eric_Robinson over at ESPN. Eric, anything you're working on you want to let people know about?
As always, man, plugging the Falcoholic, the one-stop shop for everything Falcons. It's probably early, as the guys alluded to. It's probably a little early for draft stuff, so you can put that on the back burner for now. But everything you need in terms of just getting prepared and just understanding everything about the Falcons organization is right there at falcoholic.com.
Absolutely. Love the falcoholic.com here on this program, for many reasons. But thank you again, Eric. Always enjoy having you.
No problem.
Always with us, we have Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything else you're working on you want to let the people know about?
Series history, what if the team wins and loses, just my usual stuff. I'll also plug the falcoholic.com, your one-stop shop. And also, if you wanted to see Eric on another show, you have to subscribe to ESPN Plus. So, that's something that Eric told us before the show. Big, very, very big corporate guy over at ESPN.
I'm not a corporate guy.
Big corporate guy. Definitely. I can see your suit hanging in the back.
I'm just a guy. I'm not a corporate guy.
It's like the Deshaun Watson, IG post. You just see it in the background.
You just see the ESPN suit hanging in the back. No, we love Eric. Does great work over at ESPN. I'm Kevin Knight, folks, at Falcoholic. Kevin, we will have a Falcons vs. Vikings preview show coming for you guys on Friday. And then, of course, post-game coverage on Saturday. Until next time, guys, please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Really appreciate that. It helps us out. Leave a comment if you haven't gotten yours in already. Love to hear from you. Leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. If you want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon, patreon.com/Falcoholic or by joining up with the YouTube channel memberships. Check out the Discord server if you haven't done that, if you're into that sort of stuff. We will talk to you guys on Friday for the next show. And we'll just hope this Falcons team can get out of this rut as soon as possible, because they're running out of time to do so. Yep. So anyway, thanks again, guys, for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Falcoholic Live.